good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, or whenever you may be tuning in to the Growing Our Future podcast. Hey, listen, number one, we want to say thank you for stopping by. You know, time's the only thing we can't save it. All we can do is spend it. So the fact that you're willing to share a little of your time with us, trust me, we're honored. We're also honored because this show brings on some incredible guests. You know, Abraham Lincoln used to say that the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next. Now let that sink in. The philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be philosophy of government in the next. So when I think about the future, I think about agriculture. And I tell people, if agriculture has taught me anything, it's taught me this. If you want to know what the future is, grow it. Well, how do you grow it? You got to plant the right seeds. You got to nurture those seeds, and then you got to harvest it and share it with others. The reason I enjoy this show is because we get to bring on incredible guests that share their experiences, their insights, their seeds of greatness that we can put in place in our lives and share with others. I am so excited for today's guest, y'all. I got to tell you, I'm going to try not to fanboy it here, but I may fanboy it a little bit because I am in awe of this man's career. I'm inspired by his passion for agriculture, and I'm taken by his incredible heart for others. Ladies and gentlemen, legendary rodeo announcer, Bob Tallman. Bob, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Cowboy.
Woo!
Thank you.
Man,
oh, doggy.
I like it.
I love it. I love it. You know, I'm big on Jesus, big on agriculture, big on America. So God bless America and God bless Texas. And I know this will go outside.
Sure.
Texas. And I was born and raised in Nevada.
Okay.
Not Nevada.
Nevada.
And there's some pictures behind me of my great-great-uncle, 1903 in Denali, Nevada. He came, he raised horses for the cavalry in Butte, Montana. And there was a scuffle. So he left with about 150 mares and 20 studs and 10 dogs. 1,600 miles he drove them horses to Denali, Nevada. I was raised in a place called Orvada, Nevada, 55 miles outside of Winnemucca. Winnemucca stands for one moccasin because Chief Winnemucca is a Paiute Indian chief there. And he was in World War I and he got his foot shot off, so he only had to wear one moccasin. Cool wow. People, Paiute Indians. You said about raising kids in agriculture. We ready to go?
No, I just okay. So before I get you wound up, let me ask you one.
I'm wound up.
Let me ask you one question, because every one of these episodes, every episode of the Growing Our Future podcast, I ask all the guests the same question. I'm going to ask you the question. You ready? Here it is. Bob Tallman, what are you grateful for today?
Oh, life, God's abundance, family, my friends. We're in agriculture. My grandkids now are 7th generation agriculture. We're blessed. As you well know, I'm not very technical, and had help setting up this podcast with you, with Jordan Joe Hollabaugh, who does all my social media stuff. And she's a pretty cool lady, married to Raymond Hollabaugh, rodeo people and breakaway ropers and horse people and so forth. But 7 generations of us. In the next room, in the tack room, I've got brands that go back to 1894, a 246, which was the cavalry brand for those horses he raised in Montana. J.E, my mom and dad's brand, 3/4 circle T, and now 3T, our brand. Just like Rodeo Houston, everybody's got a brand, okay? Where I was raised, Aaron, I went to a 1-room schoolhouse, no electricity, 2-hole outhouse out in the back, 8, 9, 10 kids every year, mostly girls. And when the bus ran, we went to school. And the teacher lived with us and had 8 grades. And so if you're going to go on to high school, you had to go to Winnemucca or McDermott or someplace like that. Mm-hmm. I can remember as a kid, school got out in into April. because we had to take the cattle to the mountain. No fences, no fences. 15 ranches all put their cattle together and went to the mountain for the summer. And school didn't start till October, because after Labor Day, by the time you got all the cattle separated and everything had been branded in the spring, and you got your cattle home, kids had to go as a hand. They paid them in those days $2 a day to buckaroo. Pretty good deal. But gas, if you could find it, cost 15 cents a gallon. So I can remember I used to love to go to the chicken yard with my grandmother.
Okay.
And we had, probably 100 chicken, run 500 head of sheep and 800 head of cows. And I can remember going in that chicken yard with a stick and drawing pictures of pastures, corrals, places to work cattle. Because every place you build a set of corrals on that ranch and those other ranches always had a creek running through it, so you had water in it. And the milking barn was right there. Normally, the slaughterhouse was right over there. Being in the beef business today, I've been watching cattle, lamb, hogs, deer, trout. All my life, you lived off the land. So I didn't know the word agriculture, had no clue about it. Nobody ever talked about agriculture. We talked about ranching, livestock, horses. Everything we did was big horse mules. I hated them. They were mean. They'd bite you, kick you, strike you. And we did everything with sickle bar mowers and dump brakes. And my mom drove them just like everybody else. And so when we'd sit down at the table, there might be 15 men, me and my little sister then, she was just a baby, and my mom and my grandmother. And they were Swiss Italian, came from the old country to Ellis Island, 1911. And there they were in their dresses. My mom and my grandmother always wore dresses. And they had a rosary. And they prayed while they cooked. They prayed while they made cream, prayed while they made butter. It was just something that you got used to in life. And sometimes on Sundays, my grandmother would drive me to Winnemucca, 54 miles. A lot of it was a gravel road then. An old Chevrolet pickup. We went to St. Paul's Catholic Church, where I was born, baptized, confirmed, and married 54 years ago now. Wow. So the history in all of that, agriculture was not discussed. Ranching. Then I moved to town. My dad broke his back, horse bucked him off, and he broke his back. And he tried it for a year in a body cast. I remember cutting green willows and running them up and down that back of his cast. And couldn't take it no more. He couldn't drive a team, couldn't run, put hay up with a derrick. So we moved to town. I joined 4-H. We didn't have FFA.
It's great.
2,500 people. Kirk Day, my first 4-H leader, and he was, as you and I know, thousands of them. He was the head of the agricultural district in Humboldt County, Nevada. Changed my life. I didn't know what record keeping was. I didn't know what a record book was. I didn't know what making a speech in public was. But being an old BSer now, I was a BSer as a kid. Got in one fist fight by accident. Knocked a guy out with a cast I had on a broken arm. So I wasn't a big guy. I was a little kid. But 4-H changed my life. I did everything you could do in 4-H, including home ec.
Wow.
Well, as time went on, and I got into high school, I tried football for 3 days. That didn't work. So I started to rope because I was raised doing that kind of stuff. And as I got ready then later to go to college, I went to Cal Poly. I was going to go to Sul Ross. I had a girlfriend change my mind. I went to Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, California for a year.
Yep.
What did I do when I got there? Agriculture. I got the calf contract, the steer contract, took care of all of the livestock at the Poly Arena, worked in the feed mill on Monday nights, all night, cleaning it so we could have all the free feed pelletized that we wanted to feed our calves and steers. And on Tuesday nights, we worked at Buellton, California, south of Cal Poly, in a sale barn so we could buy all the killer horses first and go to and do that kind of a thing. So agriculture took over. And I learned, I think, in my early days about agriculture because every pamphlet I looked at, read, talked about, or was lectured by had to do with agriculture. It didn't just say farming or ranching, it said agriculture in its entire sphere. Pardon me for taking so long to get to all of that, but I mean, that was, 20 years of my life. And from that point on, until I came to Texas, oh, by the way, I've been in FFA 45 years.
You're a great supporter, by the way, and we appreciate you more than you will ever know. When you talked about what you were grateful for, your family, your country, I'm with you. I love the fact that we have this incredible liberty. And the reason that we do that, Bob, the reason we start every podcast with that is because you remember the great Zig Ziglar, the motivational speaker.
Oh, yes.
His son, Tom Ziglar, is on my board of directors. And so Tom and I were talking one day, and he was up on the East Coast, and he was talking to these kids, and he asked them this question. He said, how do you feel when you're grateful about things? And the kids said, well, I feel good. I feel positive. I feel hopeful. And he goes through all of these words and emotions associated with the word grateful. And then he asked them this question. He said, what is the opposite of gratitude? And the room got quiet, and the kids were thinking. And finally, he said, the opposite of gratitude is entitlement. And watch what happens to your attitude. Well, that's not fair. That's mine. Give that to me. You go from a place of being hopeful, optimistic, and visionary to a place of a little bit of self-centeredness, a little bit of negativity, a little bit of anger, maybe even some hatred. So I think when we can teach young people that Bob Tallman, look at this. This is an accomplished man. I mean, he's a legend. I mean, there's no way we could give you all of his awards, but what did he start off with? Gratitude. And so, Bob, part of these dialogues that we have on this show, and you're already doing it. So as you were telling your story, one of the things that I like about bringing people on and letting them share their story is you find all these little tidbits in their testimonies. I call them seeds of greatness. And as you were sharing, you were talking about I sure hope people heard some things, because I'm going to tell you what I heard. Number one, you were willing to sign up for something. You stepped out on a limb. That limb was called 4-H. You probably had to stir up a little confidence to get up and say something for the first time. Let me tell you something. Life is that way. We've got to sometimes, one of the things that I've written about, Bob, is I tell people life is like a calf scramble. And there's a lot of people don't even sign up. And then those that sign up, when you show up, you better chase, you better run, and you better not quit running until the final calf's caught. But if you catch, that's when the real work begins.
You bet.
Life's the same way. There's some people, I don't even know if they really sign up. And then there's some that sign up, but they don't hustle. They don't run. And then some people chase their dreams and they catch them. And that's where the work begins. And your story that already, we're going to get into it more, but your story already is already an example of all that. So that's why I like to start with gratitude. So thank you so much for sharing, your faith, your country, your family, because those are all things that I'm grateful for as well. And they make me hopeful.
Can I ask you a question? Just let me make a statement. Two things.
Sure.
Number one, time is a non-renewable natural resource. Once it's gone, you don't get it back. So in that frame, be positive, be grateful, be leading for somebody's career if it's not your own. The second thing is, you don't understand winning if you lose the first time and you don't try again. You know what a winner is? A winner is a person, a horse, turtle that becomes a winner because they lost, and they tried again. Never give up. Never give up. And the gratefulness that we all need to have, that's how you earn grace from our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Man, I'm writing notes because that was really good. That was good.
I think about it every day. I
All
try to
right.
relate
So
to kids.
you have this incredible kickoff. It sounds like you learned some work ethic early on. You learned, something else that you said. I wanted to mention this to you because this is a little tip that I use with the kids. I don't necessarily personally, I don't like it when I get into discussions and the kids will say the word ag, or they'll say the words ag industry. And I always tell them, I said, let me tell you something. Number one, I don't know any industry, but I sure know a lot of farmers and ranchers that raise some good food. And so I like to personalize it all the way down to farmers and ranchers. And here's the reason why. When you use the word agriculture, back in about 2017, they did a survey of Americans. Did you know that 79% of Americans did not know what agriculture was?
I believe that.
Now, if you use the word food, now they get it. So
Yeah.
a lot of the times what I challenge the kids with is I said, start a discussion by let's talk about food. Because then it won't matter if it's sushi or barbecue or steaks or baked potato. But if we can start with food, we can start having a dialogue about where that food came from. And that food came from agriculture, and it came from farmers and ranchers who did exactly what you did as a young man, that put in the toil, the sweat, the tears, and lived a brand of bringing a product to the table.
Have you ever caught three or 400 trout in one day?
No, sir.
Where I was raised, the creeks would go dry the 4th of July.
Mm-hmm.
Snowpack,
Mm-hmm.
springs, they just dry it. And on that ranch, we had beautiful, beautiful rainbow trout. And if you told somebody today that you ground sluiced a bunch of quail, they'd say, well, that's not right. You'd say if you went down an irrigation ditch with 1 or 2 gunny sacks and pushed them fish together and somebody was coming the other way and you turned, somebody else got in the middle of it and filled those gunny sacks full of trout. Some of them might be 6, 8 inches. Some of them were 1.5 feet.
Yep.
Would that be poaching? No, sir. That's conservation. That is a part of agriculture that doesn't happen anymore. And so when I see things spill in creeks and rivers and lakes and, kill fish, I'm big on fish. I like fish, but I like steak. I like mutton. I like pork. I like everything. You can tell by my waistline, I got a lot of scar tissue here. The thing with agriculture, I'm afraid today, that 79% in 2017, you said?
I believe that was when it was taken.
I'm afraid with the world population the way it is today, and even here in the United States of America, that it might be closer to 89% today that don't understand because we don't represent it right often enough and meaningful enough.
Yep, I agree with you. By the way, Wayne Gretzky, great hockey player, and they asked Gretzky one time, they said, what makes you such a great hockey player? And he said, most players skate to where the puck is. I skate to where the puck is going. Now, when you said what you did just a second ago, Bob Tallman, you said something really good. And that is, where's the puck going? I can tell you where it's going. It's going to a hungry world. And to think that in the next 25 years, we're going to need 60 to 80% more food than we have today. There will not be 60 to 80% more land. There will not be 60 to 80% more resources. That means we're going to need the brightest minds that we can cultivate to pursue careers in food, in agriculture, in science and technology, because the challenges that this whole world are going to face, when people get desperate, they do desperate things.
Yes.
And when countries get hungry, and we're very fortunate to live in the United States, we're very fortunate to live in a country that has the natural resources that, if, to your point, if we use conservation and take care of them, we have the capacity to not only feed ourselves, but to feed a lot of our friends around the world. But we're going to need young people to step into those leadership roles, to step up and say, I want to pursue this career. And learning how to build a bridge to get food over this river, or I want to learn how to use a drone to get food into this other village, and I want to learn entomology where I can help with the pest control. I mean, it is so many things, but it's exciting to think about all the opportunities that are coming down the line for our young people if they will consider looking at a career in agriculture or in food.
I'm glad you brought up Wayne Gretzky. I met him when he was 19 years old.
Oh, wow.
One of my dearest friends, Michael Barnett, who
Yes.
played
Yes.
for played for Calgary Flames. He used to go to Edmonton, watch the Oilers play. I'm a hockey fan. Okay. Mm-hmm. I met Gretzky in a restaurant with Michael Barnett. Michael Barnett built Wayne Gretzky. Michael Barnett has built a lot. I don't get to see him as often as I'd like to. But first time I met Wayne Gretzky, I looked at him and I went, that skinny little kid, what can he do? You know what he did? He outsmarted him. As a little kid right here, I had to be quicker and get there sooner because I wasn't big enough to outrun the big ones. You know what Gretzky did? He saw where his shot was going to go, and he let his feet carry his butt so that he could send that shot. But he played beyond that shot. This is not the first quote I've heard that you just gave me about him. As another point, you're talking about we as a society in agriculture. Am I still correct? Because I'm on a lot of different television shows and radio podcasts and so forth. I still say that less than 2% of us in agriculture raise the food for the 98%. Am I fairly correct still?
Yes, sir.
And I'm not so sure that 20 years ago you didn't give me those numbers. You've given me a great lead in so much of this, Aaron, as we've done it. With that said, we need to teach something besides agriculture. I'll get back to that in a moment. We need to teach people, the average consumer, about waste.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
Portion serving.
Yeah.
Clean your plate. Portion serving, waste. Have you been in a restaurant lately? You watch what those waiters pick off the tables. There is enough food in a restaurant, pick the one you want, every night at midnight that goes in a dumpster. And I used to slop hogs, so I know how that works. Because we went to restaurants and grocery stores and heads of lettuce, threw them in a garbage truck and slopped hogs with a guy named Pete Pedroli when I was a kid. No waste. But today we waste, and that all goes to a landfill or something somewhere. We've got to quit wasting. We've got to learn to produce on 10 acres what we used to produce on 100. We need to think about water. Water conservation is the number one thing in my mind in the real estate business today and in the ranching business, livestock business, agriculture business, that if we don't start conserving our water because our snowpack's less and our runoff is less, we waste water by letting it run in different directions to where it does no good. And if we learn how, I've got a little place here. Have you ever been to my house? Well, we manage with lease places about 800 acres. And I have a little D5 Caterpillar. Now this is going to kick your bottom. You know how I shoot grade? Watch this. My grandfather was an engineer. This is how I shoot grade. Right here. This pencil. So you take this and your eye of the focus where you want to go. Which way do you want to move that water? This way or this way? And then you find a way to go. And you find out what you're going to do this. Or come back and do this.
Looky there.
All it is. Well, I packed a stick for my grandpa as a kid. I've done a lot of things. I just thought about this. But catching rainwater, and I was in a continuing education class the other day in real estate that just really brought it to a head, that we catch rainwater, and it's the purest form of water that you can have, full of nitrogen, awesome, clean. And what do we do with it? We let it run out on the ground. If you learn how, as a hydrologist will teach you, how to collect it, use it, water cattle, water a garden, water a yard, water your house. There's so many things. Be careful about waste. That's the end result of cooking and producing food, but you better don't waste your natural resources going into making.
You know, Bob, one of the things that you said, and I know we probably have talked about this over the years. Yeah, I live in North Texas. I live in Wichita Falls, and we were on the verge. Our city was on the verge of becoming the first major MSA ghost city in the state of Texas.
Really? I didn't know that.
During the drought, our three combined lake levels was down to 17%. The Texas FFA officers happened to be traveling through Wichita Falls one day, and I said, I'd like to take y'all on a little field trip. And I drove them out in the country, out to a little rural bridge. We went across the bridge, we parked, and I said, follow me. And we started walking, and we walked, and we walked, and we walked. And I looked at these two young men. I said, I want you to look around you right now. They said, where are we? I said, you're walking on the bottom of a lake. And I want you to look at the ground. I want you to look at the cracks in the ground. And I want you to look around, because in my lifetime, I've heard people talk about droughts, but I'd never experienced one. And I said, I want y'all to look around as far as your eye can see that there is no water. How much water is it going to take to fill this lake back up? And when you understand, just to your point, Bob, how precious our resources are, that's why we love working with Texas Soil and Water Conservation. Matter of fact, Rex Isom, their executive director, is on our board of directors. We work with American Water Works. Daniel Nix, their new executive director, is a former FFA member. We work with Ducks Unlimited, another great conservation group, which is working with Certified Angus Beef, which is another collaboration on conservation, because you said it a while ago, we're going to have to manage this land that we've got. We've got to manage this water, because people are going to get hungry. And we need people that are smart, that can stand up and say, let me help figure this out. Let me be part of the solution here. And I think that our 4-H and our FFA kids, I have a feeling they're the ones that can stand up and lead this opportunity that's going to be presented.
Them are some pretty heavy names you just dropped, the people of what they're doing and where they came from. Sometimes I get preached back at for preaching. I am ordained, by the way. I have a license, okay? And I have a God gift on this property. It's a hand dug well. It's 512 feet from the county road.
Hand dug.
21 feet down in a hand dug well is 25 feet of water. We pumped it twice with a full horse pump for 24 hours and reduced it maybe an inch. It's above the Biloxi. It's groundwater. It's as clear, clean, and safe to drink as you could have. I don't use it. There's an old windmill on it. We shut it down and just let it turn because it's fun to listen to in the wind. If it ever comes, I'm going to follow in what T. Boone Pickens said. The day's going to come that a gallon of water will be worth more than a barrel of oil. The day comes, I'll put a solar pump on that, run a pipeline out there to that street, tell people it's free. God gave it to me. It's my right and deservancy to give to them.
I'm going to tell you, when we were in that situation here in our community, so I've experienced it, you realize just how precious that resource is.
Oh my.
We were even looking at there was even a billboard that they're using over in some of the arid land over in the Mideast, that actually the billboard has porous holes in it and captures the moisture out of the atmosphere. I mean, you have to try everything you can to grab that resource while you have the opportunity.
I don't know what you know about wind or solar energy. In the real estate business, my partner, Phil Sanders, and I have got quite into the development for clients in solar energy. And people say, well, there's miles and miles of solar panels. Yep. Do you know what they get every day? sun. Second, condensation. Third, rain when it rains. And where does that water go? Onto the ground.
Capture.
Making solar panels now that capture that water in a trough, goes into a tube, tubes go into big pipes, pipes go into big rivers. It's picked up, you can turn it around. It's amazing. Well, you take 12 sections of ground, 9,600 acres, and you cover it up with solar panels, and you catch that much condensation, you can build a lake in a day in a drought.
Wow.
Oh, you know where my next love of life is. I'm 76 years old, okay? I'm only going to live to be 101, and then I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do in the next quarter century. And it will be in agriculture. I promise you that.
We've got to change topics, or you and I knew this was going to happen. I just knew when we got on the phone, we were just going to start and just go down this agricultural path. I want to switch back over to your career real quick.
Okay.
You know, for somebody to carry a title legendary, they don't just hand that out. It's got to be earned, and you've earned it. But I'm curious, for some of our younger listeners that may not know Bob Tallman's story, how did you find your way into this rodeo announcer space? And how did that start lend itself into a career? Can you take us on a real quick journey of what that looked like?
No, it's only been 55 years. I don't know how quick I can get through it, but here's the deal. I knew as a kid that I wanted to be a cowboy. When I was 4 or 5 years old, my dad took my mom to Elko, Nevada to see Casey Tibbs ride a bucking horse. And I knew that day when he met my mother, he took his hat off, shook her hand, kissed her hand, shook hands with my dad. I said, dang, that's a pretty cool dude. It's still just bright in my mind. So I wanted to be a cowboy. Well, I wasn't very big. When I started high school, I was 5'1", weighed 105 pounds. That's when I played football 3 days. All my friends weighed 150, 200, beat me up. So that didn't work. But when I graduated from high school, I said 6'1", weighed 135. Still not big enough to do anything. In that time frame, I tried to ride bucking horses, bulls, rope calves, team rope, even tried barrel racing. Didn't have a good horse. But what I could do as an individual, and if I didn't win, I didn't have a team that lost and the coach would make me run 30 laps around a football field. I knew that I had to try again, get a better horse, get better cattle, try harder. I did not know that I wanted to be a rodeo announcer, except I love telling stories. So I team roped with an old gentleman. His name was Vern Ryan. He lived south of Winnemucca there, and he was a rodeo announcer. And he had 4 great big university horns and these 50-pound drivers and a bunch of cables and a little 45 record player and a microphone. So when I started, I had a $26 Windsor mic, 4 great big horns, heavy big old drivers, had mounted them on tuba 12s, put them on the hood of my truck. My wife and I programmed 8-track carts because you didn't shoots and move and it ruin your music.
Right.
I practiced and I practiced. But I also was still trying to ride bucking horses and rope. So they would have to hold that for me after the rodeo. Well, about 2 months into that, I said, my God, I'm beat up. I'm sore. All the money I made announcing the rodeo, I had to pay over here for this. I said, there's got to be a better deal. My wife said, yeah, you need to quit that crap. Remember now, she's been training on me 54 years. So today, I did what you should. I think I went through the right sequence of career. Living in Nevada, I went to Idaho, Oregon, never did go to California, Utah. And Nevada's a big state. So I had plenty of work that I could go out and get. And I didn't know if I was making enough money, but the first rodeo I ever announced, the guy gave me $100 a perf. I said, woo, there'll never be another poor day. We're going to filet mignon, so much for them hamburgers. Well, if my mom and dad hadn't supported me and us and all the rest of it, I'd have never made it. And my dad had a split personality about that. He wanted me to stay in business with him. And my mom got tired of listening to him yell at me. And she said, you need to go over here and do this. And the guy that really convinced me was my father-in-law, Harris Goodrich. He said, you'll never know if you don't try. And he said, you'll never fail if you don't try. And you'll never make it at whatever level you want to go to if you don't persist and push. So just like we try to teach these kids for a career, the earlier we start on them, the better off we are. Well, I've been very blessed between the accolades and the halls of fame and Denver, Fort Worth, Houston, San Antonio. Think about it, Reno and the Calgary Stampede for 40 years. And I have been from San Francisco in the Cow Palace to Cowtown, New Jersey. I've been from Seattle in the World's Fair with Larry Mahan to Miami. I've been to Australia 3 different times, from Edmonton, Alberta, to now, if I may pat their chest, the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, the ultimate, the biggest. Every time I drive by that gate where you and I did that interview that day, I look up at NRG Stadium and I go, Aaron, Alejandro, and us did a big TV show right there. I think about it every day I drive by.
Boy, we didn't know what was coming that day that we did that, did we? That was right before COVID hit us. And
yeah. So as far as a career, how many people want to do what they don't really know that they need to go do? I had so much support. Bob Cook, Jack Roddy, and Jack Sparrow when it all started in those days. I can go back to Corky Prunty, Diamond Day Rodeo Company in Elko, Nevada, Jarbidge, prior to that. And then Cotton Rosser, and then Mike Servey. Mike Servey opened my big doors. Took me to Phoenix to the JC's rodeo one time. The next year I'm at Denver. 2 years later, I'm at Fort Worth. Then I'm at Houston. And I'd branch off and go here. And I'd branch off and go there. In 1983, I did 303 performances in 1 year in 365 days. But think about it, we had a lot of double days. Unbelievable. But we also had the Great American, now I want to give you a little media here. The Great American Cowboy Radio Show, second only to Paul Harvey, 454 stations at its max. The Great American Farmer, sponsored by ConAgra, Coors, Dodge, Wrangler Jeans, all the people that sponsor me still today. Wow. Some of them are 50 years old.
Wow.
And those 2 radio shows lasted 18 years. I did them in Australia. I did them in Mexico. I did them on the East Coast. And I've still got a bunch of those. I ought to give you some of those old tapes just for you to listen to.
I'd love it. Let me tell you, I'm a history buff. I'd love that. And because I know you, I'd be honored to know more about your personal journey and what it was like. So, Bob, real quick, we got to start wrapping up, but I want to ask you something because you said something one time that I've never forgot. It's tough out there for our teachers right now. It's really tough. And they're never going to hear thank you enough. They're never going to hear we appreciate you enough. And, ag teachers are a little bit different than, some of the other teachers because, math, science, history, some of your basics, you go from 8 to 4 and you're pretty much done. In the summertime, you're pretty much done. But ag teachers, they're there early in the mornings to help train teams. They're there late in the afternoon training teams, and they have to go check on projects. Then they got to go round up projects for lambs and sheep and, goats and pigs and steers and heifers and dairy and whatever else it may be. And then they got all summer long, they've got to go to the FFA convention and the teachers conference and leadership camps. And we don't get to tell them thank you enough. And I heard you speak at the Live Like Johnny. You were the MC at the Live Like Johnny kickoff, and I never forgot your words. And I want you to share some words of encouragement. But you said that an ag teacher's name on the lips of a child is almost like God.
Yeah.
And it was your way of sharing your appreciation to those teachers. And would you mind just sharing a little bit of word of encouragement to our educators that are listening to this?
I'd like to talk to some high school kids that are thinking about getting into some kind of agricultural training in college or tech schools to think about graduating with a teacher's degree to become an ag teacher. They normally go hand in hand with a county agent. They normally work with county supervisors and, county commissioners. So they have broader, they're not, nothing against English teachers, and I'll get to that, but
Sure.
they have a broader spectrum of life and appreciation for what they represent and who they're teaching. I have a 16-year-old grandson who's been very blessed to win a fair amount in the team roping world.
Mm.
And one day we're sitting outside and he's coming out of the ag building at Peaster High School. And I said, how come you didn't come out with all them other kids up there? He said, I needed to talk to my ag teacher. I said, how come? You in trouble? No. He said, we get going so fast with this team roping, this high school rodeo stuff, all this junior competition. He said, if you go talk to a basketball or football coach, he's going to push you to go harder. He said, I went and talked to my ag teacher, and he said, you know what he told him? Sometimes you got to slow down to go faster. Why? Because that man's life, 99% of them are married. 98% of them have children. 90% of them have been in the job, not because it doesn't pay that good, but because they love their career base. And 100% of them will have life left over, and they might go on and do something else in a career. Now, the teachers in general, I've got in trouble a time or two that I've always supported teachers and veterinarians. You know why? Veterinarians and teachers have a lot in common. Think about this. When you're coaching, when you're teaching a 5-year-old in preschool, they can't communicate. When you're a veterinarian and you're working on your animal, they can't communicate. So what do you have to do? You have to think for them, feel for them, teach them, make sure that the end moment that you leave them, that they feel better than when you got there. Teachers today, you're exactly right, Aaron. Nice to see you, Mrs. Smith. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Geez, I'm glad you're my teacher. And in our classrooms today, except in the country school areas, we've got so big that they don't control them. I think politics controls them, is to run them through, teach them, get them on, get them past, the STAR test, ACT test, whatever, all the tests they take, and get them on into life. Wrong. You're doing them a disfavor. In the ag world, with ag teachers, and then you can go on with our FFA kids into college. And I want to go back and think about the $27 million we just gave at Houston. And it's not all about farm kids, rural kids. Right. It's engineering, it's art, it's music, it's behavioral sciences. Those scholarships are so important to give those kids a chance. But it came from where? The Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, the Fort Worth Livestock Show and Rodeo, Austin, San Angelo, just go San Antonio. And so many people outside our Texas borders go, you people just manufacture money down there like it's paper. And I said, yeah, we do. Yeah. And you know what we do? We educate our children. And I will stand up and fly my flag for agricultural opportunities. So if you put all of this last hour, sorry, you said 30 minutes, you put all this in the last hour, and you think about it, if we don't educate and help our teachers, if we don't feed our people better food, if we don't give our kids a chance to lose so they know what it is to be a winner, and if we don't give the grace we receive, the credit back to Jesus Christ, we're done, buddy, as a society. And I know you and I in Wichita Falls are only an hour and a half apart. We ain't done.
No.
Thank you.
Wow. Bob, your words, your wisdom, your expertise, your insights, your willingness to share your encouragement. There's so many things here that I could say, but I guess the easiest way to do it is just say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking time to come on the show. You and I have been trying to get this scheduled for a while, and it's the reality of the world that you live in, and we honor that. We appreciate that, and we need you to keep doing what you're doing. You're not only a voice, Bob, for agriculture, for farmers and ranchers, but so many people. I've told Red Steig all this too. Red and I have talked about this, and I told
dear friend.
He's such a good man. But I told Red, I said, the reason I appreciate so much about what you and Bob Tallman do is because y'all also have listeners that don't come from our ranks. Yes. And so what you're doing is you're using your voice to help them understand and appreciate where some of that comes from, and to encourage them to support the kids that are coming in our footsteps. And so anyway, we could go on about that. I just wanted to say thank you. Hey, okay, so you get one fun question, and I'm changing yours up a little bit. I've been thinking about, what do I want to ask Bob Tallman? Every guest gets one last fun question. And so here's my question for you. If they were to make a movie about Bob Tallman, who would play Bob Tallman?
Interesting. Somebody that loves the Lord, kids, and grass. Somebody that understands you get one glass in life and it's half full. It's your job to fill it up and then learn how to share it. Can I get back to you on that one? I'm not sure. I always wanted to meet Elvis, missed him. I always wanted to meet John Wayne, and missed him.
Wow.
And after that, in lifestyle changes, when you reach 6 million people a week in one fashion, form, or another, it's not about me, it's all about him. And it's not about the hurtful things in life, because that's all the news is anymore. It's about trying to make something positive. I'm going to find the guy that I would want to play me, but I'd rather have him spend their resources on a wake.
That is too funny. When they made the movie about our mutual friend, Mr. Walrath, there's a scene in there where I've got just a moment there with Val Kilmer and all the actors and everything. And I always jokingly tell them they were looking for a Texas Danny DeVito. So that's why I got the job. So anyway, Bob, thank you so much.
Walrath. What a man, what a giver.
Good guy.
Took a dime.
Your words today, I want to wrap up with this. So again, this is the podcast, Growing Our Future. If you want to know what the future is, grow it. We got to plant those right seeds. And Bob, I don't know how many times today you've said what I'm about to say, but around the foundation shop, around the programs that we operate, we have a saying. It goes like this: the essence of leadership is to plant trees under whose shade you may never sit. There's going to be some mighty oaks one day, Bob Tallman, because of your encouragement, because of your support, and because of the things that you've done, the catalyst that you've served to great programs. And I just want you to know, as somebody who admires you, thank you. And thank you for taking time to be on our podcast.
Thank you all. God bless America and God bless Texas.
And so until we meet again, everybody go out and do something great for somebody. Go out, listen, trust me, you're going to feel good about it. And guess what? When you do it, it just makes our homes, our community, our state and country a better place to live, work, and raise our family. Until we meet again, everybody be safe. Thank you for stopping by.